bases dropped on a Thursday edition of Soccer Down Here. Thursday thoughts. Use the hashtag, tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Let us know what you're thinking about this Thursday. I'm Jason Longshore, riding solo with you for a while today. We have Felipe Cardenas from The Athletic and Mitchell Northam from Pro Soccer USA, and my dog Gwen will be chiming in from time to time. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here with your thoughts. Let's start with Atlanta United 2 last night. ATL UTD 2 went up to Memphis and put out their youngest starting lineup in team history, tied for the youngest. Actually, if you go all the way to like the third, fourth, fifth decimal points, you tied the youngest lineup in team history, and they get a win on the road, 1-0. Kevin Barajas with the goal right before halftime. Will Vent made his first professional start. Wesley Dacus made his first start in the team. Lawrence White started with Dacus as your center backs. They got the clean sheet along with Dylan Castanera, who made 9 saves in the match. Big win for Atlanta United too, and it's more important than just 3 points. And I think Stephen Glass nailed it afterwards, Atlanta United 2's manager. He said, I think the resilience of seeing a game out is something that is going to be really important for these young professionals. I'm delighted that they managed to get the reward that they deserved. That's something that any young team's going to struggle with. You get a goal, and there's not really a lot of other opportunities for you on the night. Some games just go like that. And you have to just hold on for dear life a little bit. Atlanta United 2 had 1 shot on goal in the second half, 5 shots total. Memphis had 11 shots in the second half, 3 on target. And Atlanta got the job done. And I think they actually got better as the night went on. And that's the impressive part about it, is early on, Atlanta had possession. Memphis was creating the chances. Memphis had a flurry of chances off of set pieces. Atlanta really struggled there. They wrote it out, and they grew into the game, and they started creating more chances as the first half went on. The goal, it's nothing pretty. Barajas pokes it home after Memphis is just unable to clear a corner. The ball's kind of rattling around inside the 18, and Barajas pounces on it and beats Caldwell, the Memphis goalkeeper. And that's enough. Sometimes that's enough. You dig into the numbers on this one, and that's what impressed me. A guy like Wesley Dacus, who we talk about Atlanta United's center back depth as a club. And with the first team, you have Michael Parkhurst, your captain. You have Leandro Gonzalez-Perez, who's been one of the best center backs in the league over the last 2 years. You have Miles Robinson, who is growing into a role where he's one of the best young center backs in Major League Soccer. With Atlanta United, too, you have George Campbell, an academy player who has played every game up until this one. He gets the night off. He's been outstanding. Kendall Edwards played a lot for Atlanta United, too, last year out of the academy. He's shown his quality. And now you get Wesley Dacus, a U20 international for Honduras, who made his Atlanta United 2 debut over the weekend as a substitute. Really impressed me in that one. Even better last night when you start to look into the numbers. You look at the duels. He won the overwhelming majority of his duels. You look at the aerial duels, and that's an area where, Atlanta United not necessarily known for being strong in the air. He won all but one of his aerial duels out of 7. Very, very strong performance. I like his range of passing as well. He's kind of got that LGP-esque range of passing. But this was a good workmanlike effort too, and that's what's impressive about this group, and that's what's impressive about the win last night. You get into some of these USL Championship matches with a team like Atlanta United 2, with a Portland Timbers 2, with the 2 teams, the second teams, and sometimes it's about individuals trying to impress. It's not about the collective. Last night it was about the collective for Atlanta United 2. It shows the quality that Stephen Glass has put in this season, the work he's put in building this group. Now, this was a very different lineup than we have seen. Jackson Conway up top, the young 17-year-old, first year as a professional. A lot of dirty work for him to have to do. He has to battle up there. He's not going to see a whole lot of the ball. He's going to take a physical beating from a guy like Mark Birch. Well, Conway gave as good as he got. And that's another one of those lessons. That's another one of those things that a young player has to go through. Laurent Kessiedou, he gets his first start of the year. Really impressed last year. A player who's capable of some special things. Also, last night he showed he's capable of kind of digging in and getting stuck in as he needs to. Luis Fernando continues to get comfortable with this group. He's 21. You'd think he's a little bit older. He played the last 3 years with the Richmond Kickers. 21, a product of Corinthians before coming to the United States to sign with the Kickers. Dangerous in the final third. Had a number of good chances, a couple blocked away before they created a shot on goal. Barajas, a little bit different role for him as a holding midfielder with Will Vent, and they got the job done. Vent, again, first professional start for him. Very good passing, 78, 79% passing. Good number of passes in the attacking half. Kept the ball moving. And defensively, not really the area that you expect Will Vent to jump out at you. He led the team in times he gained possession, 10. He had 4 tackles. He had 3 clearances. That's not the part of the game that he's known for, and that's an area where he was impressive last night. Look, this is a pretty veteran team when you look at Memphis 901. Mark Birch skews the average age. You're talking about a guy who played over a decade in Major League Soccer. But you have guys like Elliot Collier, who played a good bit for Chicago last year. You have Adam Najim, a player who came through the Red Bulls Academy, went to Philadelphia, has a lot of games under his belt. And Atlanta United 2 goes on the road. And I wouldn't say hostile in a completely negative environment, but a loud crowd, 7,000 plus for Memphis, and they get full credit for that. Stephen Glass said this after the match. I think even the environment that we played in, the crowd was a little hostile. The field wasn't fantastic. I think being able to see a game out by throwing their bodies in the way of things and the resilience and the work rate to keep it going right until the end. It would have been very easy to lose one early on and then maybe lose another one, and then you end up with nothing from the magnificent effort that the lads put in. I think the resilience of seeing a game out is something that is going to be really important for these young professionals. I'm delighted that they managed to get the reward that they deserved. Think back to the Charlotte match a couple weeks ago. You had that 2-0 lead. You lost that 2-0 lead. You went down 3-2. Kind of got lucky. Get one late at the end to get 3-3 out of it, get a point. But you had to be disappointed coming out of that. They learned. This group learned from that. Throwing your bodies in the way of things, yeah. Sometimes that's what it takes. And they get it done. Very impressive last night from Atlanta United 2. I thought a good night for the USL Championship as a whole. You get a great crowd in Memphis. Great atmosphere from that crowd for Memphis 901 FC. Still, little side-eye about the smashing guitar introduction. I don't know. I need a little more backstory. I'm still kind of like, okay, yeah, we're just smashing a guitar over an amp. That's cool. But the crowd was great. I loved the story from Watts and Devin Kerr, Mike Watts and Devin Kerr, your announcers last night, about the supporters group from Memphis on St. Patrick's Day drinking the bar out of beer. That's impressive. That's a very impressive effort from a supporters group. I don't know how big they are. I don't know if everybody just had a couple of beers, but I'm guessing that some people really got stuck in to the kegs and took care of things. That's impressive. Good night overall. Good advertisement for the USL Championship on ESPN News. Good to see these games get a little more national coverage. One other element of it I wanted to mention before we go to break is you had Alan Kelly, the referee on the game. He was your referee in the 2018 MLS Cup final. He's been an MLS referee of the year, a pro referee of the year, multiple occasions. He's ref Champions League matches. He's on your USL Championship game. First off, that's great. That's great for the Professional Referees Organization to mix Alan Kelly in with ARs who are on the way up, with a fourth official on the way up. They get the experience of working with somebody like Alan Kelly, talking to somebody like him, after the match, during the match, before the match. That's a great thing for this league, and it's a great thing for Alan Kelly to do that. Not every referee would, I'm assuming. Also, there was a moment, and this is back to Jackson Conway giving it as good as he got. Look, he's taken a beating most of the match. Yeah, he undercuts Mark Birch. I think the magnitude of it was overplayed a little bit, partially by Birch's reaction to it. But yeah, he undercut him. Foul. Birch shoves Conway around. You get players shoving each other around a good bit. Both goalkeepers come out to midfield to argue as well. And Alan Kelly, I thought, handled it so well. And this is what experienced referees do. He didn't want to throw a bunch of cards to players on the field where, okay, they're at risk for a bad tackle, for a professional foul, causing a red card and changing the outcome of the match. He gives the goalkeepers each a yellow card. Very clear in saying, we're not going to have this anymore. Hey, you, who's not going to be involved really in much to do with anything on the field, you're the least risk of getting a second yellow. Here, take this yellow card. Calm down. Hey, you, Castanera. Yeah, you came up to midfield. You ran 50 yards out of your goal to complain a little bit. You're going to take this yellow card for the rest of your team. So everybody's going to calm down right now. Such good refereeing. And yeah, is that completely by the book? No. Did those two really deserve a yellow card? Did others maybe deserve a yellow card more? Probably. But that was the correct way to handle it because it did calm everybody down. After showing the yellow card to the goalkeepers, he goes over to Mark Birch, has a conversation. He goes over to Jackson Conway, has a conversation, and you see their game out. You didn't really see too much after that. Physical, chippy, both teams fighting for the result. Nothing to where you're worried about the game getting out of hand. That is quality refereeing from Alan Kelly. It was very intentional. Trust me, he didn't just randomly throw yellows at the goalkeepers and pick them out in that situation. That is excellent work from Alan Kelly, a very experienced referee. Love to hear your thoughts if you watched the match last night on ESPN News. Share them with us on Thursday Thoughts on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. We're going to take a quick break. Before the game started last night, CONCACAF, I'm trying to think of the right terminology here. They did not conduct the draw for the 2019 Gold Cup. They just announced who the groups were and what the schedule was. We'll get into all that, and we'll get into the groups and what it means for this summer for the U.S. men's national team, for Mexico, for Canada, and the rest. Hang out with us for a little bit. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here. Thursday Thoughts edition of the show, April 11th. I'm Jason Longshore. Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic joins us in just a bit. Let's get into the CONCACAF Gold Cup. This summer, it is your Continental Championship. It's really strangely handled sometimes by CONCACAF, and this one was no exception. So it's going to be announced at 6 o'clock, waiting to see where to watch. It's on Univision Deportes, and originally it was announced as being on the Fox Sports Go app. I thought maybe it would show up on one of the FS1s or FS2s. No, there was the Lock It In sports gambling show on one, and I think a NASCAR studio show on the other. So, okay, I'm like, cool, I'll go to Fox Sports Go and watch it there. No, not there. Ended up finding it on the Fox Soccer Twitter page. So, all right, missed a little bit of it, but cool. The production was kind of bonkers. It felt like translation would happen occasionally, and then just they gave up. I don't know why. Full credit to Adriana Monsalve from Univision Deportes, who was co-hosting the event with John Strong, because she was pretty good at going back and forth in English-Spanish. But the interviews with the coaches, for example, the ones in Spanish, there was no translation on the English language feed on Fox Soccer, and I don't know. The other thing that was strange, and they went back and forth on the way they termed it, there wasn't a draw conducted in front of the audience. It was just, here's Group A, here's Group B, here's Group C, here's Group D. That's just odd. I'd love to hear the explanation for it. Look, if it's decided by seeding, okay, cool, then done, and you kind of know where everything's going to fit anyway. But when you don't show how the groups are brought together, people are going to ask questions. People are going to ask questions why the United States is in a group with Panama and Trinidad and Tobago. Two teams that have given them some problems in recent years. Panama in World Cup qualifying and Gold Cup. And we know about Trinidad and Tobago late in 2017, knocking the United States out of the World Cup. Did that happen just randomly, or was that how the groups were placed? These are questions we shouldn't be asking at this point. Look, it's unnecessary for CONCACAF to do it this way. Just do the draw in front of everybody. You did that for the CONCACAF Nations League. You did that for the CONCACAF Champions League. Why are you not doing that for the Gold Cup? That's a little frustrating and just completely unnecessary. Let's get into the groups, though. The U.S., Panama, Trinidad and Tobago, and newcomers to the tournament, Guyana, are in Group D. Group C, Honduras, Jamaica, El Salvador, Curacao, and that tournament, or that group, the first doubleheader will be in Kingston, Jamaica. Group B, Costa Rica, Haiti, Nicaragua, Bermuda, probably the easiest group for Costa Rica to advance out of that they've seen in quite some time. First doubleheader in that group will be played in San Jose, Costa Rica. And in Group A, it's Mexico, it's Canada, it's Martinique, and it's Cuba. Canada should be better this time around, hopefully. They should get out of this group. Martinique is one of those countries that can pull some surprises from time to time in the Gold Cup, but Canada should be able to take care of it, and Mexico should have a pretty easy passage through. The U.S. should qualify out of Group D. There's really no excuse if they don't, but they do have a far more difficult group than Mexico. The toughest group is Group C. Honduras, Jamaica, El Salvador is pretty even. Curacao, we'll see if they can pull a surprise. But Honduras, Jamaica should get through. El Salvador will battle to push their way in. That is the group of death, according to most of the media. For the U.S., your schedule works out like this. You get your easiest match first, and this is going to be at Allianz Field in St. Paul, Minnesota, against Guyana. Then you play Trinidad and Tobago in Cleveland, Ohio. Then you finish the group against Panama in Kansas City. Now, the other interesting thing about the way the Gold Cup is scheduled is that the final games of the group stage do not take place at the same time as we see in other competitions. Trinidad and Tobago will play Guyana on Wednesday, June 26th at 6:30 at Children's Mercy Park. right before Panama and the United States. So both of those teams will go into that second game knowing exactly what they need to do and where they want to finish. And that's the last game of the group stage. So they will know if things got weird in other groups and there's a matchup that they don't want, they will know exactly what is necessary for where they want to be going into the quarterfinal round. It's another one of those things that I think CONCACAF needs to take a look at. They need to have a public draw. They also need to have the final games of the group stage take place at the same time. You look at the other ones, the one that is kind of interesting is Honduras and El Salvador play the nightcap at Bank of California Stadium on June 25th to close out Group C. Jamaica plays Curacao before that. They'll know exactly. Honduras and El Salvador will know what's necessary going in there. Haiti and Costa Rica close out Group B at Red Bull Arena. And Martinique and Mexico close out Group A. Mexico shouldn't have any problems there. That Canada-Cuba match, the early match in Charlotte on Sunday, June 23rd, that could be a very interesting one as Canada might need a win there to secure their advancement. They play Mexico in the second game of the group stage at Bronco Stadium at Mile High in Denver, Colorado. Gold Cup's going to be a lot of fun this summer. I like the 16 teams. I do like that they are spreading the games around a little bit with doubleheaders in Costa Rica and in Jamaica. I want to see this tournament grow and grow in importance as well. That's why these little things about no draw, about the final games of the group stage not being at the same time, those little things that you just expect in tournaments, when they're not there, you wonder why, and you maybe don't take the tournament quite as seriously as you should. I hope CONCACAF can continue to grow this and get it right. We had a question on the Thursday Thoughts hashtag at Soccer Down here on Twitter from the Swixter, and this will lead us into Felipe Cardenas joining us in the next segment. So, Joseph Martinez and his penalty. Felipe wrote a great piece about it. Go check that out if you haven't read it at The Athletic. But Swick asks, for the keeper patient enough to sit on the jump and or feint Joseph, is this a deceptively easy penalty to stop? Its effectiveness seems to be in the way it makes the keeper think they have to guess, allowing Joseph to poke it the other way. See, I don't think so. I think it's actually harder to stop because of all of the unknowns in it. You don't know how high he's going to jump, and he's done enough at different times to either have a very small jump or not jump. Go ask Andre Blake about that one. To where you don't really know, and it's extremely hard as a goalkeeper when you see a player run up, even knowing that they're going to jump, even getting ready for them to jump. When you see them jump, you react, you flinch. I think 11 of 12, and the one that he missed was off the post. The keeper didn't save it. That was in L.A. last year against the Galaxy. I think that tells you he's really good at what he's doing. And what was interesting about Felipe's piece was how much thought he puts into it. You know, it is kind of no look. It takes the no look penalty to a whole nother level with the jump. And he practices it on a regular basis every day. He's the guy. That's tough. That's tough for goalkeepers to deal with. It's very difficult when you see that coming at you, even if you're prepared, even if you've seen it. Sean W. has a great point on Twitter. His response to Robert, he says, goalkeepers look at a variety of things. The angle of the run-up, the plant foot, body shape, etc. Joseph's style makes it difficult to read those pre-kick cues. Absolutely. And Andre Blake talked about it in the piece over at The Athletic, that there's so many things that go into Joseph's penalty that it's very hard to pick it up. It's very hard to pick up, okay, is he going right? Is he going left? Is he opening his body? Is he going with a big hop, a small hop, no hop? Your mind is racing beforehand, and Joseph's in complete control. He's the one who's going to get the last action in it because he's going to force the goalkeeper to move or to show something, and Joseph can react. I think a lot of people thought at one point that when he jumps up, he's basically giving up any chance to change what he does. I don't think that's true. I think honestly, and he mentioned how he's taking a higher jump now than he used to. I think that gives him more time because he goes into the air, he's watching the goalkeeper, he sees, okay, are they showing me something? Are they leaning? Are they doing this? Are they doing that? All right, cool. Land, plant, shot, goal. I think he's just got it down to a science right now, and he's feeling it. He's confident in it. And that's the biggest thing about penalties. If you're confident in what you're doing, if you are feeling it and you're not worried, you're not concerned, you see it in guys, especially in shootout situations. You see it when guys are confident stepping up to take a penalty, and you see it when guys aren't. And when you see people who aren't, 8, 7 times out of 10, maybe 9 times out of 10, they miss. I think back to Leandro Gonzalez-Perez in the knockout round match against Columbus. You could just tell from the minute it was his turn and he grabbed the ball that he was not sure of himself, not sure of what he wanted to do, and it showed. Joseph, complete and utter confidence, and that's just who he is anyway. That's just his swagger. That's his game. But on a penalty, it's essential, and everything about his routine buys him more time to make the decision that he needs to make. It's really impressive and creative, and it gives him kind of that signature move and gets everybody's attention, as we saw when he scored against Argentina for Venezuela. Let's take a break here. We'll ask Felipe about that. We'll ask Felipe about a lot of things. We'll get an extended interview on a Thursday with Felipe right after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus, and Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, April 11th edition. Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic joins us every Thursday, and he's with us now. What's up, Felipe?
Hey, man. Good morning. How are you?
Good, good. We were talking about your article over at The Athletic, the Joseph Martinez penalty deep dive. And before we came back, we were talking a little bit about, and I'm sure this is probably a common thing with a lot of your pieces, but maybe a little more so whenever you talk to Joseph, that there's lots of little things that don't make it in. You and Joseph have kind of really developed a connection. I think he's pretty open talking about this stuff with you, just based off what he said about Tata's reaction to his penalty, which is one of the greatest quotes I've ever seen. We were talking about the training side of it and how much he works on this. What was something that he shared with you about the practice side and how much he prepares to take these penalties this way?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing was, and it was right after the first, I think the first question is when he said, he's been working on this since his time at Torino. I think here in MLS and just during his time with Atlanta United, you think that he just kind of came up with it, on the fly, since arriving in Atlanta. But it's been something that's been in the works that he's been working on, for, going on 3 years now. And so kind of the way that he turned a lesson from a very close friend, he called Bruno Perez a very close friend of his. They're still very close. And a guy that could just step up and take penalties and just kind of boss the moment. And I think that's what Joseph was really intrigued by. He wanted to be that guy eventually. He wasn't the guy at Torino. He didn't take penalties. But he wanted to be able to have the confidence to step up and take a PK, and I think he wanted his own method. So he told me at Torino he practiced every day, and that has carried over here in Atlanta. It's something that he does, without a doubt. There's always a moment in training, and he said it's usually at the end of the day where he practices PKs, and he practices that PK. He jumps, he doesn't jump. He was very adamant about the height of his jump is not something that he thinks about. He doesn't even know why he's jumping higher these days. It's just happening.
And getting some more air lately.
He's getting more air. And I think what he told me is he's like, well, it's working. I do it because it works.
Right.
And so, but in training, I asked him so who, has Brad ever stopped, Brad Guzan, has he ever stopped one of your penalties? And he's like, he won't even get in the goal. And I'm like, what? Who Brad doesn't want to take, practice PKs with you? He's like, no, he won't even get in the goal. He won't even challenge me. He told me, laughing, and he's like, and I'm like, well, then who do you practice against? And he's like, well, usually Leandro. So it's usually LGP
going on there.
Yeah. So usually LGP will step in. He mentioned Alec Can as well, are two of the guys that, offer themselves to Joseph, to play goalkeeper while he practices his PK. And he, I was like, is it a pride thing with Brad? And he's like, I don't know, maybe it's superstition, but he just will not get in the goal and practice PKs with me. And he's like, I don't know, he's like, just like, a guy like me, goalkeepers have to practice saving them. And so I was like, well, the other day against Columbus, he had a nice save. And Joseph's like, yeah, I know. And that's why I celebrated so much with him, because I get so mad when he doesn't save PKs. And
I could see it from Brad's perspective that Joseph's penalty is so different.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to spend a lot of time on it because, one, Brad's not going to see it, hopefully. And,
exactly.
You don't want it to mess you up with other guys. I think that's what throws goalkeepers off so much, is that you can't prepare for that.
No. And look at Andre Blake. He is clearly over-prepared, and he still has not saved it. And I think that was what was so great about getting Andre to talk about that too, is that he was very open about it as well. He's like, he called it a very creative, kind of like a brave way of taking penalties. He was very honest about the fact that the hop does in fact throw goalkeepers off. And I was listening to a tweet from one of the fans. It's it's in the piece. He's like, if you wait too long, you might think that's the way to do it. Just wait and wait and wait. But even if you do wait and you think you've figured out, what the side he's going to go, then you have to hope that Joseph just doesn't strike it well, because if he gets it to a corner, you're just not going to get it. And because of what you mentioned before the break, is that there's so much that's going through the goalkeeper's head at that moment. And so, Joseph and I specifically talked about his penalty against Argentina, facing, one of the best goalkeepers in South America, in Franco Armani. He told me, yes, I know everything about Armani. He watches him and he knows about him from River Plate. And he told me, it's in the piece, I thought it was great. And he was like, man, when he spread his arms out, he got so big. And those are things that when you're taking a penalty, that's where all the mind games happen. The goalkeepers, they jump, they grab the crossbar, they shake the crossbar, they step up to the PK spot, they scuff it, all that, all the gamesmanship that's going on is happening before the spot kick. And Joseph told me that he saw Armani just kind of looking at trying to get as big as possible. And if you watch that PK, Armani waited as long as he possibly could. In fact, he waited a long time, but he chose the wrong side. And then in the end, it looked like he just was fooled. And so that's kind of the unique and the unorthodox, deception that goes through that happens when Joseph is approaching the spot. So, for Joseph, that PK was special. We watched it together on my phone. There's an angle from behind the goal, from behind the penalty spot where you see Messi kind of, standing there watching, and I'm like, well, there's Messi watching you take a PK, and he goes, Messi? Who's Messi? And like, he was kidding, obviously, but he was just like, he understood the moment. He understood the magnitude of the moment for himself, for his teammates, for his country. So it was a big penalty for him.
Yeah, it's a big one for his club, too. It's another one of those things that puts Atlanta United kind of on the world stage, because that penalty, and especially the way that Joseph takes it, it was sent all over the world afterwards, and everybody wanted to talk about it. And more often than not, they're going to mention that he plays for Atlanta United and plays in MLS. Another opportunity for that type of stuff to catch on is this summer in the Copa America and the Gold Cup. I wanted to ask you, this year's Copa America, you don't have the U.S. or Mexico involved, but it's a pretty traditional tournament as we've seen in recent years. But 2020, it gets really different. What did you think about the announcement with Colombia hosting the North Zone, Argentina hosting the South Zone, and the way that the format's going to be structured going forward?
Yeah, well, quickly going back to your link to Atlanta United, last thing, Joseph took that penalty because he told me he hadn't scored in a long time. So he was like, he wanted to, Thomas Rincon, who's the Venezuelan captain, was, usually takes the PKs, and, Joseph told me that Salomon Rondon was on the bench yelling, like, why should he take it? Like, referring to Thomas Rincon, like, kind of saying, like, Joseph, like, step up. And there was no conversation. Joseph said that it lasted like, 3 seconds, that kind of exchange. And it's just kind of, you look at your teammate and he kind of grabbed the ball. But it was important for Joseph to score. He hasn't scored in a while. So that was a big goal. Copa America 2020, I'm just going to be blunt. I think it's a joke, to be honest with you. Like, of course, I love Copa America. I love that there's going to be a tournament, that Colombia, where my homeland, where I was born, and I have so many families, so many memories, will be hosting. But the fact that it's co-hosted, it doesn't make sense to me. I think it's the federations, and specifically CONMEBOL, they're just kind of surging past what makes this sport and these tournaments great for fans. And it's just really all about, the monetary benefits for the federations. And I think Colombia, last night, I was reading the papers in Colombia, they're not happy. The Colombian Federation this was not their plan to co-host with anybody. They think we can host a tournament. They're okay with it. They have the infrastructure. There are new stadiums in Colombia. I think it's a federation that is looking to promote the country in the future. They hosted the Under-20 World Cup in 2011, and it was an excellent tournament. And so I think they were undone. They were slightly, dissed by CONMEBOL and by giving Argentina kind of that, like, the co-hosting responsibilities. And now you have two capitals, from Bogota to Buenos Aires. It's a 6-hour flight. So I think my concern is that it looks just so kind of like fabricated. And I think for fans, it's like, great, there's going to be more games, because there will be more games. But I think my concern is, like, what will the quality look like, with the travel that's involved, when it's happening after a long season. There have been Copa Americas in the past where you don't see the first teams for each nation. And so if that's a requirement, then great. You're going to see Neymar and James and hopefully Messi, playing for their countries, but we don't know yet. So it's not a good sign, I think. I think it just looks like what is happening in the sport, where, FIFA, CONMEBOL, they're kind of stepping in and trying to appease everybody. And in the end, it's just getting messy.
Yeah, there's bits about it that feel gimmicky. The co-hosting thing is silly. I do like that there's more games in it. I like the kind of longer group stage. That's great, but you're doing the longer group stage to only eliminate the bottom 2 out of 6, and you're going to a quarter, a semi, and a final. Just do the longer group stage and have a semi and a final. And I think it works better. I do think that going forward it will be the first choice teams consistently, because this is the first one that gets you on the same calendar as the European Championship. My understanding was they're getting away from the odd numbered years after the one this year, and it'll be every 4 years in that same window as the European Championship, which is great for us as soccer fans, because then we get games in the morning and afternoon from Europe and games in the evening from South America, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's gonna. That's like I said. I think the fans will feel like, wow, it's bigger, it's better, and hopefully that's the case. I think the 2020 tournament is going to be a big litmus test for how that tournament is organized moving forward. There are climate issues. In Colombia during the summer, it's very warm, and in Argentina, it's extremely cold. So that's going to be. Those are just factors that will affect the gameplay. Will affect how teams approach it. But yeah, to your point, I think calendar-wise, it's a big benefit. I think that's something that we've been waiting for. Something that I'm not extremely excited about is there will be countries that will be invited, and so I think Mexico and the U.S. should just be those countries every single time, or at least take the strongest teams in CONCACAF and try to slowly make this an America's type of tournament. Yes. But yesterday I saw reports on Twitter, they have not been confirmed, but that for 2020 again, Qatar could be an invited country, and China as well. So
I saw that.
So it's not confirmed. I just saw it and shrugged and was like, come on, this is the opportunity to take 2 countries like the US and Mexico that are rebuilding, or at least in kind of like this new, under new management, they could really use, this type of tournament to prepare themselves. And I think when the U.S. and Mexico are in these types of tournaments, that they do make the tournament a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's heading in that direction. Hopefully it starts in 2020. If not, it's going to. I think we all see a day where CONMEBOL and CONCACAF are essentially one in a lot of different ways, but how soon that happens, I don't know. We could go on about CONMEBOL and CONCACAF politics for a couple of days and not get anywhere. Let's look ahead to Saturday, and let's look at Atlanta and New England. It feels like it's been forever since Atlanta United had a match. This month of one game followed by 2-week breaks has been really difficult. What's your sense of where the team is headed into Gillette Stadium on Saturday night?
Well, it is tough. It's difficult because you're not really seeing. Eventually we're going to see more games, and they're going to be playing every week, and you're going to get a sense of where the team is physically, mentally, tactically. Right now, it's like, what will they do? What will Frank de Boer come out with on Saturday night against a team in New England that has problems, but is also changing the way they play, and they're the home team. There's been a lot of talk about Brad Friedel as a manager, but there's also been talk about them in New England, pressing high, being a lot more deliberate, being a lot more direct. I think we know here in Atlanta from the last few matchups is New England is a very physical side. They have been when they've come into Atlanta or Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I think they had over 20 fouls last season. So I'm wondering if it's going to be that type of game. Will it be more of kind of a slugfest? With players finding their rhythm maybe in the 57th minute instead of the 10th minute. It might be one of those games where tactics aren't, just plain to see. And it's 2 teams that just really need to win. And so that's what I've been saying since last week is that for Atlanta United, they need a victory. They really desperately need a win. I think they'll take an ugly win, and they'll be happy with it. But we've talked a lot about players being fresh. Frank de Boer has mentioned that a lot. And I think this is, despite an injury to Mikey Ambrose, and really not knowing where Franco Escobar is, if he'll start again. Overall, the players should be ready to go, and I'm sure they've used this time to fine tune some of those pain points that they've been experiencing, tactically. So, I would expect to see a motivated Atlanta United team. Maybe with the pressure is on, but I think if they understand this moment, they'll embrace it and they'll go into this game against New England knowing that, on paper they're the better team. And I know that's a cliche, but that they should believe that. Joseph told me in that same conversation that I think I mentioned to you last week. Yeah, there's a little bit of concern, mentally when you don't win games. You could be the best team in the world. You could be Real Madrid and you're not winning games, and heads go down, and heads go down when you walk out on the pitch for training. So those are things that they want to correct. They want to get that feeling of winning again, and this game against New England on Saturday night is the time to do it.
Yeah, it's tough with the Escobar injury and not really knowing where he stands. Something that's jumped out to me is Saturday night and last night with Atlanta United 2, John Gallagher was not part of the team, and he's a guy who can step into that kind of role. I think what that combined with Michael Parkhurst's comments yesterday, I think we're all pretty well expecting to see 4 in the back. And I think that's maybe the biggest change that we're going to see going forward. It just sounds like everything's pointing to that direction.
Most likely. I think early, I think you and I actually talked about 4 in the back before the first leg in Costa Rica against Herediano.
I think we lost Felipe. We'll try to get him back if possible. But yeah, the 4 in the back situation, the comments from Michael Parkhurst, if you did not see them, he mentioned that he's been training a little bit on the left side, a little bit on the right side, as well as at center back. If he's going to be on the bench to start, you're going to need somebody who can come in and play those multiple roles. We saw 4 in the back to start in Columbus. We saw it in the second half against Philadelphia. We saw it in the second half against Monterrey. I think the team is headed in that direction, and this is something that Frank de Boer mentioned day one, that he wanted to play 4-3-3. He mentioned after the injury to Franco Escobar, and this was, I think, after the Cincinnati match, that injury changed how he wanted to approach games. I'm assuming it's because he didn't feel like he had another right back who could step right in. You go back and you look at his days at Ajax. Now, I know that at Crystal Palace and at Inter, he experimented a little bit more with different formations, and I think it's kind of the same reasoning. He wasn't comfortable with what he had to play the way that he wanted to play. He said to Mike Conti and I when we met him on the first day of training camp, when he did the little bit of the car wash with the media, that 4-3-3 is how he would like to play. Doesn't mean that's how he's going to play all the time, but that's how he would like to play. The overwhelming majority of his time at Ajax was spent in a 4-3-3 with 1 holding midfielder and 2 more advanced central midfielders. Looks like that's where you're headed right now. Even with the Escobar injury now, I think we've seen enough to see that it just works a little bit better right now in the 4-3-3. For whatever reason, things have opened up a little bit. Maybe it's a comfort level. Maybe it's just matching the personnel. But that's where I think this team is going to go. And if Franco Escobar is not able to start or not able to give you 90, John Gallagher being in the 18 would not surprise me at all. And John Gallagher seeing the field in New England would not surprise me at all. Let's take a break here. Come back, get into some of your questions on a Thursday Thoughts edition of the show. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life, young adults of unique determination and experience, an ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Final segment, hour number 1. Sorry about the connection issues with Felipe, but he did chime in, sent me a message and said about the back four where he was headed was that he thinks it's where the team's going. He's, kind of in agreement with me on that you're going to see 4 in the back going forward. But what Felipe is not sure of is what the fullback profile that Frank DeBoer prefers just yet. And that's a really good point because you see different types of outside backs in a 4-man back line. You see some teams that like to get their outside backs driving forward, down the line, putting in crosses, overlapping the wingers a lot. You see others, and I think Columbus with Greg Berhalter was a prime example of this last year, where you saw the fullback sometimes cut inside and the wingers would stay out wide. That's different for some opponents. You see what Berhalter's doing with the U.S. men's national team right now, where it's very different. One of the fullbacks tucks inside, doesn't drive inside, but tucks inside to play with the holding midfielder, while the other one tucks in to make a line of 3. I'm not sure exactly what Frank DeBoer wants out of his fullbacks just yet. A little bit right now has been just based off who you have available, and that's going to be the case for a little while. Until you have George Bello back, you're probably going to see Breck Shea on the left side, unless you get creative and you play a Michael Parkhurst or a Leandro Gonzalez-Perez further wide, and they're going to be more of a stay-at-home outside back, which can absolutely work. I think on the right side, Franco Escobar is the guy until he's not available. And if he's not available due to injury or suspension or what have you, then it gets a little difficult. I think if Frank DeBoer thought Julian Gressel would be that guy on a regular basis, we would have seen it while Escobar was injured. We really didn't. We saw him play right back in Columbus. By that stage, that game was so different, it's a little hard to take much out of that. I think John Gallagher can be somewhere in between a Gressel, who is a little bit of a liability defensively, but so dangerous getting forward, and especially putting in an early cross, and a guy like Escobar, who can drive down the touchline all the way to the end line, put in crosses, and also make those diagonal runs into the box on the back post and score goals for you. I think Gallagher's somewhere in between. He's a very good soccer player, very talented soccer player, good technical player, and he's a better defender, I think, than Julian Gressel. And I think it's just been the fact that he's had a lot more time to work in that role. It was a happy accident that led to John Gallagher becoming a right back / right wing back last year with Atlanta United 2, and it looked good enough to where the team wanted to see more of it. And I think it's looked good enough this year to where he's a factor for the first team going forward, especially while Franco Escobar's health is a bit of a question. I'm going to drop this Thursday thoughts down, and we'll probably talk about it for a little while, and I definitely want you guys who are listening live to chime in This is from Jill Robbins. She says, Atlanta United is experiencing, quote, family dynamics, unquote. Frank DeBoer is the stepdad. Different approach. Could be off-putting. Until we, the blended family, as a family, go through some collective experiences, both good and bad, not everyone will be embraced, and we won't truly be united. That is a very, very big picture way of looking at it. And I think there's a lot of truth to it, because let's just think of team dynamics, and let's think to some of the things that Tata Martino talked about last year, especially when you're talking about the postseason. Any team, one, is like a family, and any team has to experience things as a group. It's one thing if, and Champions League was a prime example of this. It's one thing if you have individuals who have been through something similar. That helps. Definitely a help. That player is going to feel more comfortable. But in the team dynamic, if the team as a group has not been through these things, it can be a challenge. Postseason, you saw the team rally together and get through it and win the cup. Champions League, you had a lot of guys who had played in CONCACAF Champions League or Copa Libertadores or Copa Sudamericana before, but as a group, they had not been in those situations. And I think it showed in the first leg in Monterrey a bit. It showed in the first leg in Costa Rica a bit too. You have to go through these things as a group. You add in the factor that this group, which has been together for a good bit, with a few exceptions, now has a new leader. That's the quote, stepdad, unquote, that Jill's talking about. It does change things. It's a different personality. Frank DeBoer is not Tata Martino. Tata Martino is not Frank DeBoer. They have a different way of communicating. They have a different way of leading a group. They have a different way of being in charge. Not good or bad. They're just different. People are different. People react to different people differently. And that's kind of where you're at. I think now Atlanta United has been through a lot of different things. You've been through some injury problems. You've been through bad conditions, just weird games on the road in the league. You've been through challenges playing a team like Monterrey. You've been through a good bit, and now you've kind of been through a second preseason of sorts over this last bit of time with the Columbus game in the middle. You should start to see some changes. I think what impressed me the most about Columbus, and I said it as we were going off the air, was the fact that the team didn't quit. That's the kind of game where you see teams that aren't together quit. This team did not quit. That's a good sign going forward. Let's get your thoughts on Jill's Thursday thoughts after the break. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be right back after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus, and Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star, and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. Soccer Down Here, April 11th. Jason Longshore with you this morning. Mitch Northam of Pro Soccer USA will be joining us at 10:30 to talk a little bit about the North Carolina Courage. We'll see if they can repeat, I think, the best ever season by a women's professional soccer team in United States women's soccer history. You won everything that you could win last year if you were the North Carolina Courage. That makes it difficult going into the new season, especially in a World Cup year where you will be missing pieces during the season. We'll get into all that with Mitch starting at 10:30. Let's talk about New England Revolution, Atlanta United's opponent this week. Brad Friedel's been talking about the big-name designated player that they've been trying to get. They've been hoping they'd be able to get him before the season was over in wherever the player is playing. This transfer window that is currently open has another couple of weeks to go. It's early May where it closes. And Friedel has talked about it being somebody that he's worked with before and he knows and wants to be in New England, wants to be in MLS, and is excited about the challenge. Well, NBC Sports and Pro Soccer Talk speculates that player is Andy Carroll. So Andy Carroll has undergone ankle surgery. He is linked to a move to Major League Soccer after the summer, with a source telling Pro Soccer Talk that New England is a possible landing point for the former Liverpool star. I believe there is crossover between Brad Friedel and Andy Carroll and their times in England, so it makes a lot of sense. But if you're a New England Revolution fan, this is the number that kind of worries you. 30? Andy Carroll has appeared in just 30 matches since the start of the 2017-18 season. So, out of, quick math, 38 and 38, and you're talking 70 plus with some cup mixed in. 30 matches? And coming off an ankle surgery? 30 years old as well. Ankle surgery playing on turf at Gillette Stadium. Okay. We'll see how this goes. He won't be there for the Revolution this weekend. We do know that much. Who will be in the lineup for the Revolution this weekend is a little bit of a question mark. We know that Michael Mancienne, who is the most expensive center back in the league in terms of salary, we know that he won't be in the lineup. Received a red card, bad red card in Columbus, just completely unnecessary at that point. One of the reasons it's unnecessary is that Antonio De La Mea would be the obvious replacement. It's unclear on if he's going to be healthy and ready to go. He's missed time lately with injury. Beyond that, there's really not a lot of options if you're the New England Revolution. This is not a team with a whole lot of depth at this point. I think it's probably Andrew Farrell who slides inside. He's played some center back. He is primarily a right back, but he's only played 2 matches this season. I think he's your guy who comes into the middle and plays in place of Mancienne if De La Mea is not ready to go. Jalil Anibaba will be next to whoever the other center back is. Questions on the left side, Edgar Castillo. He's a little bit closer to being back. You do have a little more flexibility on the outside. Brandon Bai has played on both sides. I think Brandon Bai will be a good outside back in this league. Kind of reminds me of a Nick De Leon, who just got a new deal with Toronto. A versatile player, a good athlete, a hard worker, a little bit better technically than he gets credit for. Bai will be fine on the right or the left side. He's better on the right. He's more comfortable on the right. Curious to see if Castillo's not able to go and De La Mea's not able to go, how they handled it. Because last match, without De La Mea, without Castillo, You saw Mancian and Anibaba in the middle. You saw Farrell on the right and Bai on the left. If you don't have Mancian, which you don't, if you don't have De La Mea, if you don't have Castillo, you've got some problems, because if you go past that, you're playing somebody out of position in the back. Again, it's that depth. Do you maybe go with a Wilfred Zahibo, dropping in as a center back from his defensive midfield role? It's possible. You're going to have to get creative if you're Brad Friedel in the back. And if you're Atlanta United and you see that, if you see a back line of, let's say, Andrew Farrell on the right, Wilfred Zahibo and Jalil Anibaba in the middle, Brandon Bai on the left, you are lighting up, excited about attacking that group. You're going to try to run at Brandon Bai on the left because he's not as comfortable on that side. You're going to try to make Zahibo deal with secondary runs in the middle because he's not comfortable playing that deep in a back line with Anibaba. You're going to try to test Andrew Farrell, who's only got a handful of minutes under his belt this season. Now, the midfield, and especially the attacking midfielders where New England can hurt you. Carlos Gil, the number 10 for them, is leading pretty much every category, offensively, defensively, tackles, interceptions, what have you. Gil has been the man for the Revolution this season. He's their biggest threat. You look back at the last match, because the lineups are really hard to predict with New England. Brad Friedel is trying to find a combination that works and a combination that's giving him the work rate that he's looking for. They went 4-4-2 against Columbus last week. Bunbury played on the right side of midfield, not his natural position, although he can play as a winger, not really a right mid in a 4-4-2 is a little bit of a concern. DeJuan Jones played on the left, didn't really give you a ton. Juan Fernando Caicedo and Juan Agudelo started up top. No Diego Fagundes in that lineup. No Luis Caicedo in that lineup, a player that I would expect to see more of. Questions. Just questions as to how they approach this. They've generally played in a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 under Brad Friedel. How defensive are they going to be? And that's maybe the biggest question for Friedel as he decides on his lineup, once he knows who's available, what he has to work with. Are you going to try to sit maybe an extra defensive midfielder in here to help a back line that is not 100%? If you have to play Zahibo on the back line, or if you have to play Farrell inside, do you think about maybe playing some combination of Caldwell, Luis Caicedo, Zahibo, all as your central midfielders, where it is more of a true 4-3-3 or a 4-3-1-2 or a 4-3-2-1? I think you might have to. And that's the question for Friedel. You're at home. Your back's against the wall a little bit. You've had a lot of questions about how your team is looking. Can you afford to be defensive in a match against a team that you probably should be defensive against, but also a team that hasn't hit on all cylinders yet? How much are you going to risk if you're Brad Friedel? The game within the game in this one, in deciding lineups and approaches, very, very interesting when you look ahead at New England. Other players to keep in mind about the Revolution. Teal Bunbury has had some good seasons in New England. He's one of those players that doesn't get talked about very much. He can score goals. He's one of those guys that can get you 8 to 10 goals a year when he's playing up top. When he's playing out wide, he's going to give you an honest shift. He's going to work hard. He's going to battle. He's not flashy, but he's always there. He's a guy that you can't quit on. The biggest surprise for me has been Christian Penilla, the Ecuadorian DeLorean. I love that nickname from Brad Feldman, the broadcaster for the New England Revolution. Penilla has only started 3 of 6 matches this year. Come on as a substitute in 2 others. 261 minutes for him. No goals, no assists. Last year, he was the player who was the real danger man in the attack. He hasn't been that so far. Don't know if it's a work rate issue, and Friedel's talked about work rate a lot. Don't know if it's an attitude issue. Don't know if it's a training issue. Is there a knock? But Christian Penilla has just not been the factor that you would expect he would be. Diego Fagundes is another one. 2 starts, 2 substitute appearances, 218 minutes for him. He talked a lot about exploring a move maybe back to his native Uruguay. He's been with the New England Revolution since he was 14 years old. He's 24 now. His time seems to be waning there. Is he already, with a foot outside the door? Is he already ready to go? Is that why you're not seeing as much of him? It appears with the injuries that Brad Friedel's dealing with this week that he's going to have to dip into the bench a little bit more than maybe he'd like to. Does that mean a return for a Pinilla or a Fagundes into an important role or a Luis Caicedo? Or does it mean that Friedel bypasses that and he goes to young players who are just breaking through? DeJuan Jones with 2 starts. He started in Columbus. Hasn't really given you much yet, but a young player out of the draft. Tejon Buchanan from Syracuse, 20 years old, Canadian. He's played 20 minutes for you. Does he get a start to try to shake things up? Justin Rennicks, potential for the U20 World Cup team. Had some injuries, played 45 minutes for you. Does he get a start to try to shake things up? Friedel seems to be a manager who does like to shake things up and keep guys on their toes because he wants that hard work out of his group. And it seems like that's his priority, maybe even above tactical fit. He wants that hard work. Are the young guys like Rennicks, Buchanan, Jones going to give you that? Or do you turn to maybe the more talented players who, for whatever reason, you have not been happy with their work rate? Like a Pinilla, like a Fagundes, like others. I'm fascinated to see what the lineup sheet looks like for the New England Revolution, and I think it's one of those games that it's very hard to predict. And for Atlanta United, you have to worry about yourselves going into this. You're probably going to see a 4-3-3. I'd be surprised if they turn to 4-4-2 again. If they go to 4-4-2, I think they're going to look uncomfortable in it. So you kind of know what you're going to play up against shape-wise. You don't know who the individuals are going to be. You know what Friedel is talking about. You know what he's looking for, so you know what at least he's expecting to get out of the group that he starts. You know that going in. But for Atlanta United, this is a game where you're worried about how you play. You're worried about how your front 5, front 6 interacts. Is it Ezequiel Barco in the middle pulling the strings? Does he have Darlington Nagbe or Julian Gressel with him? Does Eric Remedi play as your holding midfielder, but stay linked to the center backs and your 2 more attack-minded central midfielders? What does it look like on the outside and the back? Where I'm at right now with Franco Escobar is if he can give you at least 60 minutes, he gets the start, because you'd like to get goals early. You'd like to get a strong start in this match. If he can give you 60, if he can get you in midway through the second half, he gets the start. If he doesn't, I think it's John Gallagher. I do. Left side, doesn't look like it's going to be George Bello, but we'll see what Frank de Boer says to the media today. He trained on Monday, then he was training on the side. If not, it's Breck Shea. Unless you get creative, and I don't think you're going to here. I think you're going to probably want to look as traditional in a 4-3-3, 4-1-4-1, 4 whatever, however you want to look. It's 4 in the back. I think he's going to try to look as traditional as possible, and I don't think he's going to start Parkhurst on the outside unless he feels like he doesn't have another option. So if that means it's Shea and either Escobar or Gallagher, LGP and Robinson in the middle, Remedi in front of that, you know what you're working with. What's the rest look like? Is it Tito Villalba? Is it Julian Gressel on the right wing? Does Andrew Carlton push into a starting spot after a good performance from him with the 2s last week? He did not make the trip to Memphis last night. Gordon Wild, he didn't make the trip to Memphis either. Does he factor in? Anderson Aseyadu didn't make the trip to Memphis either, but that's going to take some roster maneuvering if you're going to have him be part of the mix, because he is right now on the roster but not in a spot, in an international spot, because you don't have him. Now, you can move pieces around. You could make a loan if Florentin Pogba is not going to play for Atlanta United this weekend. You could loan him to the twos. You could drop Anderson Aseyadu into that international spot and I think make everything work. But do you want to have him have his first start on the road against New England? He's been getting better and better every match with the twos, but is he that guy? Do you want to pair him with Remedi and play two more defensively minded central midfielders and just one more attack-minded guy? For me, I think you're looking at Shea, LGP, Robinson, Escobar, if not Escobar, Gallagher, Remedi, Nagbe, Barco, Pitti, if he's ready to go on the left, if not Tito, and on the right side, either Tito or Gressel, Joseph up top. I think there's a few injury questions, and that's going to affect it more than anything else. But for Atlanta United, you're worried about how you play more than what the Revolution are going to throw at you. You know you're going to have to battle. You know they're going to scrap because that's what their managers ask for. That's the expectation. That's what they're going to have to do to get a result here. You're going to have to be ready for the battle, but you have to let your quality come through if you're Atlanta United. Let's take a break. We'll get into your Thursday thoughts on the Twitters right after this.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, April 11th edition. Jason Longshore talking on a Thursday Thoughts edition of the show with you guys. And you guys have thoughts. I like it. Daniel Price chimes in on Twitter. If the roles were reversed and we started with Frank and switched to Tata, would we still be having the same conversations? Yeah, I think so. Because I think the team would probably look a little different if you started with De Boer. I mean, look, Tata Martino had a chance outside of, 2-3 guys to build the team from scratch. He was able to build the team he wanted to build. And that's not to say that there's players that Frank De Boer doesn't, like. That's not it. But Tata had a vision and had a clean slate. He had a blank page outside of Chris McCann, Kenwyn Jones, and maybe Tito Villalba, although I think by that point, at least the conversations were had, and Tata probably would have been in a position to say no if that wasn't one that he liked. Just looking at timing, but that was good. So, maybe 3-4 guys. Alex Tambakis was already in the group as well at goalkeeper. Okay. The rest of it, Tata Martino was able to get started and build the way he wanted. Frank De Boer comes into an already established team. Not really a chance to make any changes based off the way he wants to play. So if the roles were reversed and Frank built the team would look differently. And then when Tata came in, he would manage the group that Frank had picked. So I think this happens. I think you're having these same conversations regardless. It's a coaching change, and it's a guy. It's not an assistant who had been in the team and knows it and was part of building it. It's something different. So I think you'd be having it regardless. Now, the question, and this is something we really won't see for quite some time, and we'll have to keep an eye on what Tata Martino does with Mexico to maybe inform a little bit of it, is who would adjust better to being in that situation? Who, we know what Tata Martino did. He built a champion in 2 years. Would DeBoer have done that? We don't know. We'll never know. But who will adjust better to taking a team that already has, established pieces? Tata has jumped into Mexico, and you've seen now national teams are different, obviously, but you've seen guys that Tata Martino has picked, guys that had been role players before, show really well in the March friendlies, and that's one of the big talking points in Mexico right now. A guy like Rodolfo Pizarro, who was kind of off to the side of the team, plays for Monterrey, played really well under Tata Martino. Seemed to be a perfect fit. Well, Tata was able to, identify him and bring him in. Now, we'll see what DeBoer takes with Tata's team and what he does with it. We'll also see when you get into the summer transfer window, if there's changes. If DeBoer looks at it and says, you know what, I need something like this. I need a different piece. It's going to be an interesting time. I think you'd be having the same conversations, Daniel. I think you might have different talking points in the conversations. But yeah, I think anytime you change, and especially change a team that's successful, it's one thing if you're Matias Almeida and you come into San Jose and you're going to make changes because the team's just not good. It's easy to make changes when the team's not good. That's what Almeida's going to do. Now, his hands were tied a little bit because of some of the contracts that were signed previously, and it was hard to get out from under those, so it's going to take him a little bit longer. But he also has more time to work with because you're talking about a guy who the expectations are very low. Frank DeBoer, big expectations. It's a big club. You're coming off a trophy. You're coming off a championship. Different mentality altogether. And you're also not making as many changes to the roster because it's been successful. I think anytime you see these changes, you have these conversations. I think the fact that you're coming off of a championship and you're coming off of a championship and a team that was built by a manager who was beloved, and he built the team from scratch. It's his team at the moment. Kind of feels like a college team, right? Where you see, the team turn over year after year, but when a new guy comes in and wins, it's like, oh, well, that was somebody else's team. You won with somebody else's players. That's kind of where Frank is right now. Now, over time, that's going to change, but that's where it is right now. So that's a little difficult for him to be able to, as LGP mentioned about being the center back and being the experienced one, it's kind of different for Frank to come in and be the new daddy, to be the stepdaddy, as Jill put it. It's a different conversation. I think any change, you're going to have a conversation about it, but this one is a little unique because of the situation with Tata Martino building the team from scratch in his image. Kefsi has a question on Thursday Thoughts. Thinking about different skills at right back, I know Franco made a name for himself as a goal scorer in the playoffs, but his tackling and ability to shut players down 1v1 is what is most worthy of praise for me and is needed whenever he is available. Totally agree on that, Kefsi, because, and that's the thing, going back to what Felipe said about not knowing what the qualities you're looking for out of your outside backs right now, not knowing what DeBoer values and doesn't value at outside back. Escobar's a guy who can give you anything you're looking for out of an outside back. The getting forward part, he can give you that. Gallagher can give you that. Gressel can give you that. Scoring goals, creating goals, all three of them can give you that. All three of them have shown you that. Defensively is where Escobar separates himself. 1v1 defending. And the way this team is going to play, we've talked about it since day one. Tata Martino's teams had the same issues. The way you're going to play, whether you are breaking out fast as the team has previously or you're dominating possession and getting numbers forward like Frank DeBoer's team wants to do. when you have a turnover and when you're in transition, you're going to be in 1v1 situations. Leandro Gonzalez-Perez generally thrives in that. Franco Escobar, I think, thrives in that. Michael Parkhurst thrives in that. Julian Gressel, maybe not as much. John Gallagher, we haven't seen it at the MLS level. Escobar, you can trust in that situation. That's why he's been so missed. That's why his absence has been, in my opinion, one of the biggest issues with Atlanta United, because, yes, it has changed the way you've had to play. Because Frank de Boer obviously did not trust anyone else to be that 1v1 defender as needed at right back. So he went away from and added another center back for extra cover. That's a safety mechanism. That's to have more cover defensively to prevent those issues. And generally, the team has done well defensively. You're not giving up tons of goals here. It's been some individual mistakes that have cost you. It's been some set pieces that have cost you as well. It can be better, but the big issue is not having Escobar, not having that 1v1 defending. I totally agree with you, Kefsi. Ricky Ricardo is maybe taunting some of you because the word is out that the parlay kit is available. Ricky Ricardo ordered his. It's beautiful. Also, in 18 minutes, everything that isn't XXX is sold out online. So I guess our fan base is still crazy for gear. Yeah, that popped up out of nowhere, and it's gone out of nowhere, and there will probably be some on eBay at very high prices. And make sure that you get the authentic one and don't get the rip-off one, because it'll probably fall apart pretty quickly. I don't know. Maybe the quality's gotten better on the rip-off kits, but the parlays especially, I think there were some problems last year with some of the rip-off parlay kits that ripped, literally. It's a great cause. It's a really cool thing, and it is very limited edition, and that does drive the demand, sure. Maybe you could up the quantity a little bit, especially for fan bases that are insane, like Atlanta United's fan base, and make more money for a great cause. I'm excited to see that. It's going to be fun. I like that MLS is getting involved in some of these different causes through MLS Works and through the different partnerships that they have. This is a good one, and that's going to be a very good weekend coming up soon. And maybe some other people got a parlay kit as well. Maybe Ricky Ricardo is not the only one in the SDH universe to get one. Although, I hope everybody was ready, quick on the trigger finger to order. Let's take a break here. We're going to get Mitchell Northam on the line from Pro Soccer USA. Get ready for the upcoming NWSL season. Mitchell's in Raleigh, and he's keeping up with the North Carolina Courage. Can they repeat and win every trophy in front of them again? Let's see what Mitch thinks right after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. A little technical difficulty. Skype's really fighting with me today. It's fighting with Mitch as well. Mitch and Northam from Pro Soccer USA. What's going on, Mitch? How are you?
Hey, not much. How are you?
We battled Skype. We won for now. Hopefully it doesn't fight back and win the match on a DQ at the end. We'll see what happens. But, Mitch, I wanted to get you on because we're a couple days away from the NWSL kicking off. And we talked about it earlier this week that it's kind of a weird season for the NWSL with it being a World Cup year. There's excitement on some levels of women's soccer in the United States, but also the NWSL is going to play through the World Cup, and there's going to be some distractions for the individual clubs. What's the vibe like around the Courage?
Yeah, it looks like there's going to be a little break for the NWSL from I think June 3rd to 14th. I think that's kind of that opening round of the World Cup. But yeah, after that they're going to get right back into play. And yeah, I mean the World Cup is kind of the big thing with the Courage this year. I think everybody and the team and Paul Riley included, I think they all expect them to compete for the NWSL Cup again this year, and be a title contending team to defend their title from last year. But yeah, that World Cup is really going to kind of throw a wrench into their plans because there's certain points of the season with friendlies in May, and then of course the World Cup this summer that they're going to be without possibly 8 to 10 players at any time, and many of those players are starters. So they do bring back basically that whole starting 9 from the title game last year, but they're going to be without some really key players during big stretches. There's I think about 3 to 4 games this summer where they could be without 7 starters. So yeah, it's going to be a tough run at certain points for the Courage as Paul Riley tries to kind of balance the roster and move in some reserve players into some key roles. But yeah, I think that's sort of the big thing with them this year is kind of balancing that roster once the World Cup kind of comes and goes.
Yeah, before we get to that point, you look at this roster, and when you have a team with the success that the Courage had last year, they won the Shield, they won the Cup, they won the ICC as well. You think, okay, well, maybe it's going to be hard to keep that group together. They did. And on top of that, they added Canadian women's national team goalkeeper Stephanie Lave as well. So you've upgraded at goalkeeper when you really didn't even need to. I mean, is this the best team in the league, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think I don't know if there's even really a debate. Yeah, like you said, they, pretty much broke every league record last year. They, won the Shield, won the Cup, won the ICC, and everybody's coming back. Plus, you get Canada's #1 goalkeeper between the pipes. They had a pretty good draft as well. Paul Riley's really high on Leah Pruitt, the forward from USC that they got in the first round. Haley Harbison and Laura Milliot will probably be asked to contribute at some point. And I think that he's kind of been preparing them to do that when they're without some of those World Cup players. I also think Julia Spetsmark, who is from Sweden, it seems unlikely that she'll be called into Sweden's World Cup squad, but she is a player who has national team caps. She's going to be an important player for them in the midfield as well, and she was an off-season addition. So, yeah, I mean, they really didn't lose much. They lost Darian Jenkins in a trade. And she was, pretty good for them in the ICC, but other than that, didn't contribute a ton. But other than that, I mean, yeah, they kept that core of that squad together. Like I said, bringing back the entire starting 9 from the championship game last year. Plus, they got better in goal, and plus they reinforced some different areas that they're going to need when those players are gone for the World Cup.
So if you stick with the 4-4-2 that Paul Riley played a lot and kind of did a box midfield with 2 holding and 2 attacking midfielders, you look at who could be gone in the summer, and you could have players. I mean, the U.S. has a send-off tour in May. The roster should be announced at the start of that tour, so you could be missing players for half of your season, and you look at what the lineup could be. You've got, Abby Dahlkemper with the U.S. gone as a center back. You have Abby Erceg gone as a center back for New Zealand. Your midfield could all be gone with McCall Zerboni, with Sam Mewis with the U.S., with Crystal Dunn potentially with the U.S. She plays in midfield for the Courage. Debinho with Brazil. And then Jess McDonald and Lynn Williams are both possible at your forward roles going to the U.S. I think McDonald's probably a little more possible than Williams. So what does the depth look like when you're missing all of these pieces?
Yeah, I think I went to Courage training yesterday and talked to Paul Riley a little bit, and he seems to be leaning towards, it seems like McDonald will probably get the call, and he's kind of counting on Lynn Williams, perhaps sticking around through kind of the duration of that World Cup and those international friendlies and whatnot. It's the depth is definitely going to be tested. I think in the midfield, you'll probably see Denise O'Sullivan kind of fill in there. Heather O'Reilly will probably fill in, in some spurts, but she's going to be gone through different points too, because she's doing some broadcast stuff for Fox Sports during the World Cup. So there's going to be some stretches where she's not going to be around either. I think Leah Pruitt and Laura Milliot, both at forward and midfield, I think they're going to get the chances to prove themselves as rookies. I talked to, again, Paul Riley a little bit yesterday, and he thinks, Leah Pruitt has the chance to win Rookie of the Year simply because she's going to get some real chances to actually prove herself because of the depth that's going to be gone up top. I think at center back with the 2 Abbies gone, you're probably going to see Ali Haran and Callie Kurtz there. Kurtz was with the team last year and was kind of that number 1 sub when any of those center backs needed a break. Haran is a player. I think she's in her 2nd year as a pro. She played professionally in Iceland last year, but she's a local product. She went to Wake Forest, was all ACC, very good at center back. So that's probably going to be kind of what your depth looks like. They're going to be relying on, a little bit of new faces. I mentioned Julia Spetzmark earlier. She's a midfielder who can also get forward as well. They have a couple of supplemental roster spots that they can play around with this year. And goalkeeper, when LeBay's gone, right now, Caitlin Rowland is kind of battling a little bit of a shoulder injury. So I would expect them to sign a 3rd goalkeeper sometime soon. They've had Sam Leshnak in camp. She's from the University of North Carolina. I think you're probably going to see maybe some unfamiliar faces, maybe some rookies really getting some valuable playing time for them. Elizabeth Eddy is healthy now, so she's going to get some work in the midfield probably. It's going to be interesting to see sort of how Paul kind of juggles that roster when players are out for sure.
What's been interesting for me looking at this from a distance is how well the club as a whole, North Carolina FC and the North Carolina Courage and the academy side of it, all fit together. Like, it really doesn't feel like, okay, it's North Carolina FC in the USL Championship, and then below that, it's the Courage. They feel like they're co-headliners. It's like a big rock show or something, and you have co-headlining Bill here. The Courage get just as much attention as North Carolina FC from a distance. Does it feel that way locally?
Yeah, it definitely does. I just moved here in October from Atlanta, where I was covering Atlanta United for Pro Soccer USA. It definitely feels that way locally. Driving around here, you see, North Carolina Courage and NCFC, tags on people's cars and stuff. And really, whenever you go out to the complex there in Cary, everything is very, it's all in. Everybody's, all in for the academy, for the USL team, for the Courage. They had a luncheon a couple weeks ago that was sort of the kickoff for the USL season, but it was kind of kickoff for both. Up on the stage, they had Dave Saracen and Paul Riley, and they had Abby Erceg and one of the NCFC players. So yeah, it's very, very much, I think there's a lot of fans here who, probably go to both games. They're fans of men and women's soccer. I mean, everything is very centralized. And it makes it, I guess, easy to root for if you're a fan here. Everything's in one place, and it seems like everybody's all in on each team here.
Well, another big event for the Courage this year is the International Champions Cup, the women's tournament. Last year, the Courage won it. This year, they get to defend that title, but they also get to host it. So you have Lyon, you have Atletico Madrid, and you have Manchester City come into town. There's a monetary prize for this. It's not a Women's World Cup, but does it kind of have that feel to you and to the community about this is a big deal this summer for the Courage?
Yeah, I think so. I think that stadium is probably going to be pretty packed in when the ICC comes here. I think that the Courage, the players, the coaching staff, and the fans all expect them to defend that title, considering, like I said before, the whole team from last year is back, and you could argue that they're better than last year. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a really big thing. I think they have, a couple kind of kickoff events, kind of pep rally type stuff planned for it to kind of, build some fandom around it. But yeah, it's great that it's back for its second year. There's also, I think there's a men's ICC game coming to Charlotte, so maybe that'll, build up some fans as well this year. If you're a fan of, like you said, Atletico Madrid or Manchester United or whoever, and you kind of want to see those international teams play. You've seen the men's or whatever, maybe, you'd like to go see the women as well. It's going to be pretty cool to have, kind of those big European clubs, right here playing in Cary. I would expect kind of a crowd that the College Cup typically draws, which is usually a sellout crowd there. I think it's going to be a pretty big event here in August.
So you've had a chance to keep up with North Carolina FC as well. They're coming to town to face Atlanta United 2 over the weekend. They've gotten off to a good start. A couple results that maybe surprise you a little bit, but they're among the leaders in the Eastern Conference. How's Dave Sarakin settling into his new gig?
Yeah, seems like he's off and running. I think they're still undefeated here. I expected them that they would compete in that game, but not. Oh, I'm back.
Yes.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I was just saying, they've had a couple good results here. That first game of the season, against Louisville FC, where they just, blew them out of the water. I don't know how many people were expecting that. But yeah, I mean, they've sort of grabbed the momentum and kind of kept it rolling. They have a couple tough games coming up. I think they have Memphis here soon, or they just played Memphis. Saracen seems to be settling in. I went to training camp a few times before the season rolling, and all the players seem to be buying in. He seems to really, have a good feel for how he wants this club to play. I think they're definitely on the right track to probably get a playoff spot this year.
Yeah, it looks like it. And it was an interesting deal when Sarakin went from being the caretaker with the U.S. men's national team to taking the job in North Carolina. I think it caught a lot of people by surprise. But I think, to me, it really showed the level of professionalism, the level of expectations that Steve Malik has for North Carolina FC and the Courage and the whole package with the club. They are still talking about potential MLS expansion, and there's been some rumblings about stadium stuff. Kind of, what's the soccer scene like in Raleigh for you coming from Atlanta?
Yeah, it's not quite as crazy as Atlanta was. But, of course, there's a little bit of a difference. I mean, Atlanta just sort of got MLS rolling right off the bat, and everything kind of happened. This has been sort of more of a slow burn. I mean, they've built it up. They have a really dedicated fan base with the USL team and with the Courage here. And I think, Steve Malik, you mentioned, has done a great job in that front office with Kurt Johnson. Done a great job of just, making this, an all-inclusive kind of atmosphere for fans, making it easy to get to, making it affordable. I mean, there's definitely a real fan base for soccer here. I think there's a lot of really good, there's definitely a market for soccer here. I think, they're on those. I know Steve Goff every now and then from the Washington Post will put out kind of those ratings from whether they're Euro matches or World Cup matches or whatever. And you see Raleigh pop up on there every now and then. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely a soccer fan base here. A couple weeks ago at that luncheon that I mentioned earlier, Steve Malik mentioned that, they want that downtown Raleigh stadium, whether MLS comes or not. They think I think there's a real need for a soccer stadium, not a soccer specific stadium, but just a stadium in downtown Raleigh that can host sports and can host events and concerts and all sorts of things. There really isn't anything there right now that can do that. The PNC Arena where the Hurricanes and NC Statesman basketball team play at, that's sort of outside of town. But yeah, as far as downtown Raleigh, like I said, he wants that stadium whether or not MLS comes.
And you've made your way down here a couple times this season. Looking at it now from a little bit of a distance, what's your take on Atlanta United and the slow start so far?
Yeah, I think the last time I was down there was when they had that draw against Philadelphia that sort of felt like a loss. It's been tough. I think, like everybody else has said, it's going to really take some time for them to adjust to Frank de Boer's playing style, to some different players that they have in the lineup. They've had some injuries. I think, it was a bit of overreaction at first. Everybody, I know there's some fans that are really riled up about Frank de Boer there, but I think it's just going to take some time. He coaches a system that's different from Tata Martino's. The players are adjusting to it. Pity Martinez is still sort of getting fit. There's been some other injuries. I think there's definitely time to, make up some ground here. The MLS season is a long one. I think they'll be fine in the end, but it's definitely been a rough start. And I think they really need to get some good results on the board here soon.
Mitch, what can people look for from you over at Pro Soccer USA coming up? What are you working on right now?
Sure. So I'm working on a big North Carolina Courage preview since the NWSL season kicks off on Saturday. So that'll be posted probably sometime tomorrow. And I'll have a couple of Courage features as well. I talked with Leah Pruitt, the first round draft pick they got from USC. And I also talked to Jaylene Hinkle, who might be the best left back in the NWSL. Just talked about kind of her growth and her season and sort of how she's feeling going into this season. So you can look for those at prosoccerusa.com, and I'll tweet them out on Twitter, and I'm at Primetime Mitch.
Awesome. Let's touch base after the opener and keep up with the Courage as they try to defend every trophy known to professional women's soccer that they currently own. We'll see if they can win. I think they have the option to do the treble again. They did the treble last year.
Indeed, yeah. They, the ICC, the Supporter Shield, and the NWSL final. So, yeah, it's definitely possible.
And I'm down to start lobbying for a Women's Open Cup if you are.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm all in on that.
All right, cool. We'll start that effort. Bring the Women's Open Cup. You can create a hashtag for it, and we'll do that. But we'll talk next week about the Courage. Thanks, Mitch. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks, man.
We're going to take a break, our final break. If you have any Thursday thoughts you want to chime in on, do it on Twitter now, at Soccer Down Here. Be right back.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it. Drowned it again and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Final segment. Soccer Down here, April 11th. Our buddy John will be joining us tomorrow. He's away, family matters in Alabama at the moment, all thinking about John and his family. Let's look at some of the news from around the league you might have missed. Houston Dynamo, we've talked about it this week. They've been a bit of a surprise how well they've played without Juan David Cabezas. He will be back, fit and available, according to Wilmer Cabrera. He'll be back for this weekend's match against San Jose, Saturday at 3 o'clock. According to Glenn Crooks, who broadcasts matches on radio for NYCFC, Alexandru Matrica has a rib injury that he suffered in the second half against Montreal. He trained on the side yesterday. Status for Saturday's match in Minnesota, it's up in the air. Hebert left training early. He's not ready for 90 minutes yet. Does he see the field in Minnesota? We'll have to see. One person who will not be on hand unless they're trying to pull a big surprise, and this is misinformation. Minnesota tried to get Liam Gallagher of Oasis to be on hand for the opener of Allianz Field. Now, you might hear that, and you're like, why would they be trying to get Liam Gallagher from Oasis? Well, they started a tradition years ago, and they've done it after every win, and they do it even for big moments that aren't a win, because you can't guarantee a win, but you're going to sing it in this one because it's a big deal opening the new stadium. They sing Wonderwall, the Oasis huge hit. They would have loved to have had Liam Gallagher on hand to do that. Didn't work out. He's recording a new album. Schedules didn't work out, but they did leave the possibility open that Liam Gallagher could be on hand in St. Paul at Allianz Field sometime this year to sing Wonderwall with the Minnesota United fans. I can't wait to see Allianz Field. I can't wait to see it on Saturday afternoon. It's a 5 o'clock kick as they host NYCFC on national TV. Another acquisition that had been rumored and then maybe a little worried that it wouldn't happen in this window. It looks like it's going to get done, according to Kevin Baxter of the LA Times. The LA Galaxy have done everything they've needed to do to sign Giancarlo Gonzalez, the Costa Rican center back who's currently with Bologna in Italy. That club's getting relegated. Gonzalez has been in MLS for a 6-month stint with Columbus before he went to the 2014 World Cup. Led Costa Rica to their best ever finish in the quarterfinals, turned a lot of heads, and brought the Columbus Crew a lot of money in a transfer. So looks like he's coming back to Major League Soccer, and he's going to head to L.A., and according to Kevin Baxter, he'll join the team this week. Now, they have to move up in the allocation order, so there's going to have to be a trade to go along with this. So keep an eye on what the Galaxy have to do to make it happen. But Kevin Baxter of the LA Times is reporting that it's done. Another rumor, that one maybe we can move past the rumor stage. A rumor that popped up last night, Portland Timber fans are pretty excited about it. Brian Fernandez, 24-year-old Argentine striker who's with Necaxa in Mexico. He is linked to Portland by the Mexican sports paper Record. Pretty big source. Now, he's one of the leading scorers in Liga MX. He's got 11 goals in the Clausura, 17 goals in all competitions since the start of last fall's Apertura. Necaxa is right now in the 7th spot in the Liga. That's their playoffs. The top 8 go. It's a really tight mix between, honestly, 1 through about 9 or 10. I don't think there's any way Necaxa can afford to sell him before the end of this transfer window. I know Portland fans are trying to find some way to make it happen. I don't think Necaxa could justify that at all to get that done. So I'm thinking this is a deal to happen in the summer window, not this one. So they're going to have to wait a little while. He's played a lot on the right wing. He can play up top as well. He's bounced around a little bit. He started at Nick Alifi's favorite club, Defensa y Justicia, before moving to Racing, which is kind of crazy because Racing knocked Defensa down to second place this year, and Racing just won the Argentine title. He never really fit at Racing. He went out on loan a bunch, spent some time in France at Metz, spent some time in Chile before going to Necaxa. So Brian Fernandez, potentially with the Portland Timbers, it might take a little bit of time. Another potential is Omar Brown, leading scorer for Independiente in Panama, grabbed some attention in the CONCACAF Champions League. Reportedly, he will be headed to Montreal on loan with an option to buy. Have not seen that announced just yet, so keep an eye on it. But that was all over the news out of Montreal early on. And our Arjen Robben rumors from earlier in the week, Taylor Twellman threw some cold water on that, says that Toronto is not interested. It's not going to happen. First round draw of the U.S. Open Cup happened yesterday. Some interesting matchups have been announced. In our neck of the woods, you have South Georgia Tormenta with 2 teams in the tournament. Now, let me try to make sense of this for you. They have a USL League 1 team, which is fully professional, and they have a USL League 2 team, which is fully amateur. The USL League 2 team participated in the tournament last year. They qualified again based off their record in the regular season last year in the PDL, which is now the USL League 2. They are in the tournament. They will be hosting at Eric Russell Park in Statesboro, Georgia. They'll be hosting the Chattanooga Red Wolves. So not the USL League 1 team that the Red Wolves will see in regular season play. It's the USL League 2 team that will host Chattanooga Red Wolves. South Georgia Tormenta 2. South Georgia Tormenta 1, or just South Georgia Tormenta, the USL League 1 team, they're drawn to go on the road. They go to face fellow USL League 1 team, Greenville Triumph, in the first round of the Open Cup. Look, we already knew that a team in Statesboro and a team in Greenville, you were going to have a rivalry. They were going to play, I think, 4 times already in the regular season. This is number 5. And this one is a knockout game. So I would expect to see some Tormenta Magenta heading up to Greenville for that matchup in May. I'm looking forward to that. That's maybe the spiciest game thus far. There's a couple others that are really interesting. The Richmond Kickers of USL League 1, they're hosting Virginia United. And when you're looking to learn about teams like Virginia United, go to the cup.us, Josh Hackala's site that covers this tournament, has covered it for years and years and years. Virginia United is not a new club. They're part of the Woodbridge Virginia Soccer League. They qualified for the Open Cup through the regional qualifying that started last year. And their claim to fame is that they knocked out 4 teams to get here, one of them being Christos FC. We know about Christos in this tournament. We know their quality. We know their pedigree. Virginia United knocked them out. So Richmond Kickers cannot take Virginia United lightly in that first-round matchup. Another one not in our region, Forward Madison FC in USL League 1. They have to go on the road. They're going to Bavarian SC, the oldest club in the tournament. They were founded in 1929. This is their first time in the Open Cup since 2012. They reached the semifinals of the tournament before the pros got into it in 93 and 94. They first competed in the U.S. Open Cup in the 30s. I mean, this is a legendary team, and they get a chance to host a professional team in Forward Madison FC in their return to the tournament. That's a cool one. That's going to be a fun one to watch. And another one, our friends out in Arkansas, the Little Rock Rangers, they are hosting North Texas Rayados. That's a tough draw for the Rangers to get Rayados, who generally pulls an upset or two. This is a pretty even one. Rayados are an independent amateur team. Rangers are in the NPSL. But that's a real toss-up. That's one that I'll be looking for in the first round. May 8th, May 9th, you can watch these matches on ESPN Plus. They're your official home of the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup. Looks like our parlay kits are sold out. Robin Sagini chimes in that the XXX sold out 20 minutes ago. They're all gone. It was fast. This fan base is crazy. They're all gone. The prices will be jacked up now, and they will be on eBay. Yeah. Last year, I believe they did issue like a second run and did maybe a specific sale at the team shop, stuff like that. So keep an eye on it. You might want to turn the notifications on ATL UTD on Twitter just in case. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Much appreciated. As I said earlier, John will be back with us tomorrow. We'll also talk to Mike Conti from 92.9 The Game and Doug Robertson from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. A quick update from Doug at training right now. No George Bello, no Kevin Kratz training with the first team today. Be on the lookout for Doug's tweets about what Frank DeBoer has to say as he speaks to the media. Our buddy Joe Patrick from 92.9 The Game and Dirty South Soccer will also be at training. Lots of quotes coming out of the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground this afternoon. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Much appreciated. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m., for a Five Stripe Friday preview edition. Mucha plata, y'all.